Yeah, I think Corey he's a great young kid. He's obviously come in from the Sevens program, and it's something that a number of the South African speedsters have done as well. They've played both sevens and 15s, and so he's adapting well to the game. And this will be a big, steep learning curve for him. And you know, we've had guys of equal speed, the likes of Darby Lancaster, again, who came across from sevens, who's in our wider group. So you know, you want to try to, I suppose, grow their game a little bit and get them comfortable transitioning from sevens to 15s. A lot less space to move in, and you know, you've got to become pretty proficient around the contact area, and Corey's worked really hard at that. He's got better and better contesting ball in the air, because he is that quick. He has that elevation. I don't think anyone quite has the same elevation as Cheslin, but you know, you talk about speed, you talk about size. I think Kurtley Aronsa and Cheslin are a good example of that. Obviously, we've got Cannon Moody starting this week against us. He's a taller young man, but very athletic as well. So that aerial contest will be very competitive again. It's something we didn't win at the start of the test match. I think on the back of that, they got a real kick into their momentum, and that made it difficult. And then on the other hand, losing Harry is not ideal at all. Rob's played 40 minutes for us, and that's all so far this season. So it's good to have Rob back, and I'm sure he'll acquit himself really well. I think his selection in the Wallabies side is probably one of the most consistent things over the past 4 or 5 seasons, and this season there's been a little bit of a hiatus where he hasn't been there, and it's nice to have him back.
And you know, with the Boks, you know, clearly wanting to, you know, rectify what happened last weekend. You know, was there a bit of temptation, you know, to start Andrew in Corey's place, or you know, was it from the start, you know, wanting to have Corey back?
Yeah, I think Andrew Callaway for us has played probably, you know, as much as any other back, certainly in the 23 and often starting last year. And so I had a chat with Andrew, and we just felt for Corey to get the best opportunity. It's easier to start than it is to come off the bench. You get more reps at training. It was one of the things that happened last week as well, just around trying to integrate someone and get them as ready as possible. It was, you know, with James O'Connor last week, we didn't bring him off the bench for his first game in his kind of reincarnation as a Wallaby, because we wanted them to get the flow of the week. And so while this week has been reasonably compact by the time we travelled down from Johannesburg, I think Corey's acquitted himself really well so far.
Sheldon, as you spoke about this week about returning to what makes the Boks strong, and if you sort of pick the side that does that work up front, 2 locks on the bench, you guys sort of expected that to be what they would bring to you guys for this weekend after last weekend?
Yeah, we weren't sure what to expect. Sometimes when you have a team that started as well as they did and had a continuity that they did, and then just didn't manage to sustain that, sometimes coaches give them another chance and they say, righto, you know, you demonstrated you have the ability, can you sustain that throughout the game? This is your challenge. Or you maybe shift focus. I think Rusty has done really well growing strength and depth in his squad, and it's something we're trying to build something similar, because you know you need to have that strength and depth. Otherwise, you're always a little bit vulnerable. And for us at the moment, we're obviously on our 4th number 10 that we've used, and that's always going to be a challenge. So if you have integrated a number of players in a number of positions, I think he has the flexibility to be able to pick very strong sides, regardless of how many changes he makes. And there's still, in that starting group, I think there's got to be 10, 12 guys from the last World Cup, so they still have that experience.
Rugby's such an emotional game, and from the emotional high of last week, there would have been a little come down. In terms of mentality, are you using history as a motivator? Australia's never won back-to-back since '63. Ironically, that was part of Cape Town, which you have a chance to repeat that. Is that part of your motivation?
No, not really, because if we glance back, it's nice to know what has happened, but that doesn't influence what can happen, and we've got to make what can happen. We can't wait around. We can't wait for the Springbok to bring their game. We've got to kick off with our game a lot better than we did last week, and so we've talked more about that and tried to do more about that than look that far back, because it's not something. It's nice to know it. And I think, with the amount of coverage of it, it's something that the players are aware of, but they know it's not going to significantly shift the end result. What most influences that result is what we can control and what we can do to perform as well as we can, and what we expect from the Springboks, and try to make sure that we are capable of closing as much as we can of that down.
So do you think the result last weekend was good for the game as a whole, and perhaps the championship as a whole? Just how we do it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. When you're neck deep in one environment, it's hard to have really global perspective. I obviously think it's good for the game because we got the result, so that's really good for our game. But and the manner in which it was achieved, I think, is good for our confidence. But we know that confidence can be rocked pretty quickly. We know that improvement is never linear. You may get an upswing, and at the end of that upswing may be a trench, and we've just got to make sure that we try to stay as balanced as we can, as well prepared as we can, and try to just keep that level of performance that we found at times in the second half.
Joe, obviously in that second half, maybe the Wallabies were a little bit smarter than the Boks, I think it's fair to say. Does having players like Nick White and James O'Connor, especially, if you can talk about James, in the team, help with that on-field decision making?
Yeah, it does. The accumulated experience of those two players, again, for us, James was just trying to find his feet, particularly in that first 20 minutes. He got caught drifting across field and got turned over. He was a little bit hesitant, but as the game went on, I felt like he got a bit of rhythm. Nick's kicking game was really important for us. His organisational game was good for us, and so those two together, thankfully, were a good pivot for us.
On James, is he in the frame for Rugby World Cup 27 you're hosting? I mean, I know it's a long way away, but you are building depth. He's 35. How does he fit in the bigger picture?
Yeah, it's not my decision. I think we've got some young guys who are coming through at 10, and part of our plan with James was for him to kind of guide those younger players and help them through their development until they both disappeared, and he decided that he needed to develop himself into our current number 10. So I would never say never. I had Johnny Sexton with Ireland for a long time, and in 2019 I felt like that might be his last World Cup, but he's a hell of a player in 2023. So there's no definitive stopping point. Nick White retired in the third test against the Lions and played pretty well in his comeback game. So, albeit only 2 weeks later.
Joe, you guys started training, what was it, on Monday or Tuesday. Did you give the guys a bit of time to just mentally clear after Saturday and sort of get used to the Cape Town environment without being specifically on the rugby field and doing that, like just switching off a bit? You said it was a compact week.
Yeah. We only trained Tuesday, Thursday this week. We didn't train on Monday. We had a couple of meetings, and the forwards will always they'll walk through lineouts every day that they get the chance. But you've also got a travel day on Sunday, so we got the travel out of the way. We got a little bit of a regeneration day on Monday, and then worked hard Tuesday, Thursday, and I think some of the players on Wednesday got out and played golf. Some went to the waterfront and had lunch, and saw a little bit of Cape Town. Some of the staff walked up Tabletop Mountain with an impressive view of about 12 feet. We're right in the middle of the mist, but a great experience. It's a beautiful place, Cape Town. With the sea, with the mountains, with the tabletop, particularly, and the waterfront area is beautiful as well. So it's just nice to be able to get out and take a breath in the middle of the week, particularly because you know what the cauldron is going to be like on Saturday.
So 22-0 down after 20 minutes, what does that do for the belief in the group when they pull off something like that? There's obviously a lot of belief there to begin with, just to be able to pull off something like that from that position. But have you noticed this week and since Saturday an injection of something that's come as a result of that?
Not really. You hope that it does build belief. You hope that it gives confidence to players, so they don't hesitate, so they seize the moment in front of them and play as best they can. So that would certainly be what we're hoping for. Another thing that we're trying to build is just some cohesion. We try to keep some combinations together so that cohesion can continue to build, because we had a camp for 2 days in January, and then didn't really assemble the team until the lead into the Fiji test that we had, and then had another 4 days where the players could regenerate, and then had a week's lead into the first Lions test, just because Super Rugby went right to the end of June, right before we could really springboard into the Fijian test. And with that, unfortunately, we were really hopeful that one of the teams would get into the final this year. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but that's what we'd planned around, one of them getting into the final. Well, fantastic if two of them did, but we know the strength and depth of the Kiwi Super Rugby teams, and they had 3 out of the 4 semi-finalists, and obviously the 2 finalists.
So you mentioned cohesion. If you look at the 10 changes that Rasi made, obviously key positions like fly-off, inside center, they've got experience there. Do you think that will make a big difference in the way the game is managed, especially in those teams?
Yeah, it's a good point, but cohesion isn't developed maybe week to week. That's part of it, but it's year on year, really. And when you look, Grant Williams is an experienced player. Andre Pollard, you couldn't get much more experience. And then in the midfield, Damien Delonde coming in fresh. I don't know how many tests he's played with Jesse Creel, but I've coached a few against those two, and they've been pretty hard to break down. So, those combinations, there's a lot of them that have spent a lot of time together. Same with Cheslin coming in on the wing. He's almost an automatic selection for the Springbok, and Willie LaRue, he's played over 100 tests, so it's not like he suddenly gets catapulted in there and doesn't know how to connect with the players in front of them. it's the same in the front row. There's a bit of consistency there. So that I don't foresee. I'd love to see it if there's not cohesion, but I don't foresee there being a lack of cohesion.
So just a question on the breakdown. I mean, you guys dominated the area certainly after 20 minutes last week. And the Boks have gone with the big number 8. It's not known for his breakdown work. Number 7 is a lock. He's also not known for his breakdown work. I mean, do you think that's an area you can profit again this week?
Yeah, I think Marco van Staden is very good over the ball, and they don't need a whole lot of back rowers going for the ball when they got Malcolm Marks. He is very, very strong over the ball. So Jesse Creel's good over the ball. The game has shifted a little bit where there are role-specific involvements. There are in line-out formations, there are in scrum, obviously, and those set pieces, but across the board, you can have players who are very strong in the breakdown without them having a specific number on their back. So for us, we just know that the breakdown is going to be pivotal because it is in most test matches, and I'm not sure we dominated the breakdown just because a lot of times, especially in that first 20 minutes, our breakdown got shifted backwards so quickly. I felt that a couple of the turnovers we got were fantastic efforts from Tom Hooper or Fraser McWright. But probably the 6 or 7 breakdowns before them had been very much dominated by the Boks and it put us on the back foot. So some of the time, those breakdowns, we were just hanging on, really.
And you sometimes get on the wrong side of the ref or the right side of the ref and you get the momentum.
Yeah, you do, and I felt that in the Boks tries, I think they were on penalty advantage in each of those. So I think the penalty count might have favoured us, but the reality is that the penalty count was a fair bit closer than the final count. Just because when you play through advantage, they often don't count that, but we do. We let our players know that was a penalty, by the way.
Guys, I might just throw to online for a couple of the Australian journos. Mel, did you have a question for Joe? You might be on mute, Mel.
Yes, sorry,
Yeah,
I
thanks, Mel.
couldn't hit the right button. I'm here. Joe, I just wanted to ask about Fraser McWright, like what you've seen in him as a player. I'm not on mute anymore.
No,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mel. Yeah, Fraser.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you, Mel.
You're frozen.
No, I'm still moving. Just
Hello?
to answer Mel's to answer Mel's question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I love technology. Don't you love technology? Sorry, Mel. Just to answer your question, Fraser. Part of the decision was he finished the game last week as captain, so it was almost the continuity that I felt he finished the game well. He was captain of the Australian under-20s when he was in the age group sort of arena, and he's a quiet leader. I don't think we don't need someone who's remonstrating or saying a lot. We just need someone who's going to demonstrate the right performance on field that other people can follow, and I think Fraser has demonstrated that. In lieu of alternative choices with Alan Alalatoa and James Slipper, 2 previous captains for us in the last year, both being out injured, with Harry being out injured, with Liam Wright being out injured. I wouldn't say it was a process of elimination because that's not fair to Fraser, but it was probably not ideal that he's a first-time captain for us, but he at least got a little bit of experience in the back end of the game when Harry went off on last Saturday.
We've got time for one more online if there's anything that needs to be asked.
Joe, if I can jump in, if you can hear me, mate.
Yeah, got you, Chrissy. Yep.
Joe, I'm just interested. Rassi Erasmus earlier in the week said some interesting things. He said, I feel Australia are playing pretty much like we did in 2019. Defend, and if you can make an error, they will pounce on that. We don't believe that's the way to win the next World Cup. What do you make of those comments?
I don't really get distracted too much by comments. Look, South Africa will commit to the way they play, and we'll commit to the way we're trying to play, and it doesn't always work the way we'd like it to. I felt that there were times that we engineered our own line breaks and some pretty positive play, and we didn't have long periods of defence. We tended to concede ground pretty quickly, especially in that first 20 minutes, and would have liked the defence to go on a bit longer, but they had already got over the line and scored. So that didn't work too well. And then we did profit from a few errors from the South Africans, and we're a little bit lucky that those errors occurred, and I'm sure that's something that Russie will have solved during the week.